this is the other thing. It goes the other way around. You don't tell her what you want or need, and you don't ask her what she wants or need, but you're trying to guess all the time, and you're setting yourself up to fail.
Higher desire to watch pornography, to have excess caffeine, to drink, to scroll. And as guys are trying to do this, honoring yourself, spending time with yourself, getting in solitude, being in silence, is that this brings up a lot of numbing behaviors for guys, I think. Welcome to the Awakened Man podcast. You join me and our special guest, Christine Jewell. Welcome to the Awakened Man podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really excited about this conversation. And especially, I met Christine and we were introduced because we do very similar work. We got on a conversation and we realized that Christine and I had a very, very similar story, almost a character through our 20s, from being an athlete to being a coach, a physical trainer, and now working with men is so similar. And do you know what? I was so inspired and I really wanted to bring this conversation to you guys on the Awakened Man podcast who tune in. And we wanted to have a conversation about how men can attract, grow, and lead alongside a strong, powerful woman. And Christine, this is your jam, right? This is what you do on a day-to-day. This is what you do every day. You help men and women in this arena.
Yes, exactly. Totally. Isn't that what we all want, right? We all want this. And then when we get it, it's kind of like total freak out mode. Oh my gosh, I got it. Now what do I do with it? How do I not sabotage this whole thing? Or how do I not fuck it up? Excuse my language. I don't know if I'm able to say that, but that's really the thing, right? We all want this amazing, great relationship where we can co-create together and lead and do epic things. And yet, if we're honest, back in the back of our minds, a lot of us are terrified of this relationship because we're like, shit, what happens when I get it? Am I actually going to be able to, hold up my end of the deal and hold up the strength that this relationship requires? And so I think this is a really important conversation to dive into. So I'm excited.
I agree. And I can, even when you were sharing then, I can openly share with you when we talked about how I went from a relationship where I was the breadwinner. I did all the work and my partner stayed at home. She looked after the house and sorting out how the house was changing, and she did a lot of the cooking and cleaning. And I went out to work and I worked all the time. Our relationship ended and I wanted something different. One of my biggest concerns, meeting my current partner, Poppy. Poppy is a decisive, powerful, strong woman, and we are navigating the challenges that you talked about. And it's been amazing. It's the only way that I've actually been able to improve our relationship is by stepping it up and leading more in those different things that you talked about. So just to share with the listeners, what brought you to here, Christine? I'd love to know just a little bit about what brought you to work specifically with men and women in this arena.
Yeah, so I'm going to share a little bit of my backstory without going into too many details, but you and I chatted. You're in Dubai. I have a love for travel in foreign countries. My dad actually worked for the CIA when I was younger, so I spent a lot of my early years moving from country to country. It was a very chaotic environment a lot of times. So my father had that personality, and then he also had some addiction issues on top of it. So I just grew up in a very chaotic environment, kind of always like heightened nervous system, very performance-based, a lot of love for performance, a lot of distorted views of what love looked like, right? Because you didn't know when you were going to get it and you had to look a certain way and be beautiful and perform and do all these things. And my dad was very much a warrior, at heart, and he was literally a warrior hard ass in so many ways. So from the very beginning, as with any woman, guys, if you're listening and you have a daughter, you are her first love. You are teaching her what love looks like, what a relationship dynamic looks like. And unfortunately, I learned a very dysfunctional one growing up. And that first love affair with my dad was really just where I learned, okay, well, if you want to get love, you got to perform. You got to be like going all the time. You have to be the shiny one, the beautiful one, the one that's scoring the goals, whatever. Well, fast forward later, as we came back to the US, actually when I was 17, my dad was then no longer with the CIA, but he ended up having a job, ended up losing everything because of his alcoholism. And just like that overnight, we lost our home, we lost our luxury lifestyle, I lost my family, and it was like, boom, everything got repoed, the house got foreclosed. Oh. And it was just like, what happened? And in that moment, I had taken all that warrior energy that I learned from my dad and all that dysfunctional love. And it was like a perfect storm of just, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I will never let any man get me in that position. I know how to fight for what I want. I know how to get what I want. I had learned a lot of relation tactics by then and a lot of performance driven tactics, which are great. But you get into this place where you're like, okay, if it's going to be, it's going to be me. And so I became very good at sales, very good at marketing, very good at excelling athletically. You and I have a similar backstory, right? I ended up training really hard, going to a couple world championships and stuff, opening multiple businesses, having relationships, getting married. And the thing is that for about 2 or 3 decades, really 2 decades after that, I really operated from a fire under my ass and a hardened heart. I really did. I was just like always running away from pain. And my heart had been so hardened because of all this wounding and distortion. And like it was so ingrained in my system that everything I was creating, I could create whatever I want. That was never the problem. But I would burn it down. I would destroy, like I could never have intimacy. I could never have connection. Even with my first husband, I was married. And it was just like constant fighting, never getting on the same page, like vying for position, who was right, who was wrong. There was affairs, there was betrayal, and it was just like a shit show for decades of all of this faulty programming that I had picked up. And, I got to a place where I was like, enough already after I got divorced. My first time I cycled through another 8-year relationship, the same program. So, sometimes we think, oh, it's this person. If I just leave this person, no, wherever you go, there you are. And you just carry all that programming with you. So the warrior ditched my first husband. She jumped into the next one with another bulldog kind of a guy. And it was like 2 bulls in a china closet again for another 8 years, competing, transacting, pushing each other. And it was a very chemically passionate relationships, a lot of them, because I have a lot of fire in me, as I'm sure you do too, and a lot of the guys do. But we get confused and we think that sometimes that passion is love when all it is chemicals like in our body, and it's wounds getting triggered, and it's the old familiar rising up in our addictions. So I had to go through a lot of healing of all that. I got to a place where I was like, I cannot keep this up or I will burn myself and burn everything else to the ground, including my kids. And so I just got to work. I went through some deep seasons of massive healing where I was like, I'm going to be single forever unless I get this shit right. And I remember having this conversation with God saying, God, I will be single forever because I know the man you have for me. And I know how you design me, strong, independent, fierce, and all this stuff. And I know there's some things I got to heal and humble myself. And I was willing to be single. So I went, did the work, and it's been a beautiful transformation. Not an easy one. It was really tough, but I went through my own dark night of the soul, multiple ones, and deep wilderness seasons. And, now I've been married to my husband, who is really my soulmate. We have the most amazing, supportive, beautiful relationship. We work together. Everything in my life has been restructured, reorganized, like come into full alignment. And I no longer create from the fire under my, it's like the fire in my heart, right?
Wow.
And it's from a place of flow and harmony instead of this constant battling. So I'm really passionate about this. I'm passionate about these conversations. Yeah, especially the ones around like the wounds we picked up, the distorted love, the distorted love program we have, and also our distortions in our roles as masculine, feminine, men, and women, and how we can really show up for each other to amplify each other.
I think when you were sharing then, I remember the moment I went through my divorce. I was there, and this is something I shared in a coaching school a couple of months ago. And it was going through that whole process taught me about what real love was. And like for me, like love was, I loved you if I love you, I'll love you if. So like I placed love as conditional. It's like, oh, she'll love me if I provide, and so like I had created conditional love, not even really, sure about what that really even meant. And then it was like, I love you because you've got great abs. I love you because you're great and your body looks good. And it was just like, I could just feel all this kind of conditional love. I love you if, I love you because, and I never had that. I just love you. And I remember the day that I broke up with my partner and I went back to my home and got unconditional love from both my parents. Just love you because I just love you. That's it. There's not because even when you're failing. And it was a huge, massive moment for me. And I remember that. And as you were telling your story, I was like, yeah, because I think that's how we create love in our 20s and stepping into our 30s and 40s. It's this whole new way that we create love in our relationships. And going through that, Christine, what did it give you in terms of like a superpower, in terms of insight, helping the men and women that you help?
going through the healing journey or
Yeah, the
the
whole
breakdown, the
thing.
total breakdown. Here's what
Yeah.
I say, like, I think some of us really, we're just stubborn. We're hard headed. We're fighters. We are like, well, we need to be really broken down before we're willing to get humble and go within and do the real work that needs to happen. And others, we have a much not as deep of a threshold. We'll go sooner, right? And there's no right or wrong. But I will say that it's something that I knew I always needed to do, but it was scary and I didn't want to go in there, right? But it has been the most beautiful work. And I love what you said about really learning. I'm going to say a couple things that I didn't understand, I didn't know. I was never taught. Who teaches us how to love really unconditionally? I love what you said about just, I love you because that's what love does. Love loves, period. There's no all these other things, right? There's nothing like that. So a couple things that I had to learn. Number one was that, like, what is love anyways? Like, what is
Yeah.
a verb? How does love move? How does love act? Like, what is it? Love is a verb and an action. And yes, it's a feeling. We feel it. It's a state of being. And yeah, I'm sure you guys talk about that all the time on the podcast, but that's really what it is. And it's a decision to be loving, feel love, share love, receive love, give love, just being in the place of love. And that was something that I didn't get it. I couldn't, like, logically, I was trying to grasp it through all my mindset work. This isn't something you mindset your way through, by the way. This is something you experience in your heart and in your body, right? The other thing was really, like, part of that love. The first relationship that I needed to work on really was the relationship with myself, with my inner woman, all the parts of me. Some people do shadow work and there's all these different types of bodies of work. But the reality is, like, we cannot hold space for someone else, all of who they are, to be really loving and accepting of who they are, until we've gone in and held space for all of us. The little girl, the queen, the hot, messy, ugly, crying one, the one that kicks butt, takes names at championships and is a great entrepreneur, and, like, all the ones. And so as I deepen my relationship with myself and I go deeper into that well, the more I'm able to hold that for somebody else, and I can love you in all the range of you instead of just the parts of you that I like, and then getting triggered about all the other parts about you that remind you of the parts of myself that I don't like, right?
Yeah.
Which
I
is
think
really why we get pissed off with each other. We're like, I'm uncomfortable with your sadness because I won't deal with my own.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you shared before is that we talk about love on the podcast all the time. We've done one podcast. It's called the Love Podcast, and it's like the most listened to podcast. And
Yeah.
it's called the Love Podcast. It was one of our first episodes. It's not even like a great episode. We looked at it, we were like, why are so many guys listening to this episode? And we don't talk about love a lot on the Awaken Man podcast, believe it or not. And actually, when you're sharing, then I was like, actually, this isn't a conversation I think guys sit and consume, because it's something like when you're saying about self-love. Even today, we're on a call with like 34 guys on a call, and one guy was sharing how he wanted to work out his finances and get them straight, and then he wanted to work on finding a partner and why he couldn't find a partner. And I just shared to him, like, my friend, I don't think this is the work. I think you're not here to find a partner or to try and find a you're here to learn to love yourself. And
Well, to get to know yourself, I think, right? And even that concept of self-love, like, I don't really love that word, to be honest, but I think it's so much deeper in a sense of acceptance. We do not accept who we are. We do not really, like, cherish the man inside, the woman inside. We don't know him. We have locked him away or hidden parts of him. And hiding is a big pattern, especially with the masculine, okay? Hiding parts of ourselves is a huge piece. And so I think we've got to do the work to really see and honor the different parts of you. And honor is something the masculine is really missing, you guys. I mean, I know we're going to dive into that in a minute, but how can you honor a woman if you don't honor all the parts of yourself? Appreciate, respect, accept. And these are all things that sound really cute, but nobody knows how to do. Like, very few people actually know how to honor, respect, accept, cherish each other. It's just
I'm
like, no,
like, I'm
you're
sat here thinking that you need to share. You need to know this, right? Come on, Christine. Come on. How does a man do that? From a woman's perspective, from a coach's perspective, how does a man honor, cherish, and respect himself more so he can do that with his partner?
Well, yeah, I think it comes back to that first relationship. To me, really, that first relationship is between you and God. It really is. Like, it's just you, yourself, and God, or whatever, you believe in that's greater than you. but it's bigger than you. And it's also, it starts with you, right? It's that first intimate relationship. And I think that, I don't know in your work, but for me, for sure, like the hardest thing that I get the most resistance on with the guys that I work with is spending time by themselves, with themselves in solitude, not isolation. Okay. There's a difference between isolation where you feel alone and abandoned and all that stuff comes up, but you need to be able to be with yourself, to sit with yourself, to wrestle with yourself, to have a conversation with the parts of you that are scared and hiding and have desires. And like, there's so much discomfort. And I'll tell you, I'm so curious how you guys deal with it too. But when I support people during this season, that wrestling season, is struggling. Like they don't want to be there. They want to run away. They want to fix it. They want to date somebody else. Or can I have casual? Can I still be on dating apps while I'm still looking for my queen? Can I still do this while when I'm doing that? And it's like, the answer is no. It's like, are you willing to get to know yourself first and foremost? And it really starts with those simple exercises of go out for a meal and don't take your phone and just be there with yourself and observe how you get uncomfortable and just hold space for yourself. Because, you know, that's being able to like hold space for a beautiful woman. You can't do that if you can't do it for yourself.
That's it. So guys listening in, like here's a little challenge. Christine's going to set you a load of challenges we're going through. I can feel it, right? So can you go out and sit by yourself somewhere without your phone? And that's a great question for guys. Like, can you go out into a bar, a cafe, somewhere where you'd sit on a park bench, or can you go for a
Walk.
walk? Yeah, can you go for a
Yeah.
walk without your freaking phone? And I think that's a really good way to honor yourself, is just to be present with yourself. And actually what came up for me when you were sharing that is that so many guys, when they're doing this uncomfortable stuff that they're not used to, is that they'll get this desire to close down that feeling that they're not even attuned to. So it comes with like a higher desire to watch pornography, to have excess caffeine, to drink, to scroll. And as guys are trying to do this, honoring yourself, spending time with yourself, getting in solitude, being in silence, is that this brings up a lot of numbing behaviors for guys, I think. Mine was definitely scrolling. It was pornography about 2 years ago. It was definitely working out. I'm just going to go and work out. I'm just going to go and work out.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't spend time on my own. I was like, I was speaking today about this. I'd fill
Yeah.
every single space with music, like loud music, but
Noise, right?
techno
That's it.
intensive music.
And I want to dive into this. Can we unpack this a little bit? Because I think this is huge. It's not just even like go hang out with yourself and just give yourself warm hugs and like all this inner child stuff, which yes, we get to do that. But it's, you know, what comes up when you're going for a walk and you don't have your phone, or you're actually just sitting in a coffee shop and it's just you. It's like you literally, your nervous system is uncomfortable. You start squirming, you start thinking of all the ways you're failing, or everybody you owe something to, or what you haven't done, and it's like sitting with that anxiousness and being able to go, wow, isn't it interesting? I always need something to do, something to fix, something to solve, something to analyze, something to judge. And then the judgment just pours in, right? And it's like just noticing all of that stuff that's always with you. All that energy, by the way, I'm going to drop into energy for a minute. All that energy, all that mental thoughts, right? Those belief system, everything, but really the energy that's swirling in you, that my loves is oozing out of you, whether you know it or not. And that's why a lot of women are like, ooh, no, thank you. It's actually like repellent because it's not
Mm,
grounding. It's not anchored. And so to your point, you said, I have to fill it with noise. It's like all of you is actually outside of your body. There's no potency left in you because you're getting all of your strength, all of your power, all of your everything from the external. You're like plugged into a million sockets, right? And that's why when you unplug, it's like you're like literally you're this electrical being that's just zapping and zipping and all this stuff all over the place. And so not only does it have you go into the place of discomfort to sit with some of those faulty mental programs and really just be kind to yourself for a minute and notice what it does with the physical body is it teaches you to anchor and ground your energy. And I think this is really important, especially when we talk about masculine and feminine, is that when women try to control men or try to, like baby them or mother them or whatever, it's usually because the man, I'm going to just say this straight out, you guys are ungrounded. You're all over the place. You're not present, right? Your energy's chaotic. And so porn, sex is just another way that men use to try to ground their energy. It's like they want to feel their strength. They want to feel back in their body. So they use something like sex. You gotta be careful with
mm,
this because we use sex like this inside of our relationships where you're going to the woman, the feminine or the sacred sex to get your strength, your energy, and your meaning. And you're using her as a grounding rod. instead of you learning how to ground yourself, anchor yourself. And so channeling your energy into your body, into the moment, is a powerful practice, because that's what you bring to a powerful relationship. All of you, all of your energy, not all this discombobulated, frenetic sort of stuff that a lot of people are bringing.
That makes so much sense. I can see the days where Poppy's found me way more attractive and the days where she wants to mother me.
Yeah.
And it's the days where I'm so present with the kids. I'm just in the moment. I'm not looking through my phone or I'm flitting from task to task, and I'm grounded. And I can feel it. I can feel the difference. Like
Yeah.
on Sunday, like even though I wasn't feeling too great, I was like super present with the kids, and we had a day where
Yes.
we really connected as a family. And the title of the podcast is like how to attract and grow and lead a powerful woman. Is like, actually, for a lot of guys, is they need to sort a lot of this stuff out. And I see so many, like even my patterns from parents. I was like, my dad, he came over to Dubai recently and he was on his phone constantly. He was very ungrounded. And I was like, at just various points of the conversation that had to happen, it's like put my hand on the shoulder and just to ground him, just to bring him back down to earth, right? And I think that this is an epidemic for a lot of guys. I don't think this is just a Ben thing either. I think so many guys just really, really struggle to get and stay grounded in their bodies, and because they're not used to feeling as well. They just, like when we talk about a lot of the feeling stuff, they zone out. They don't want to talk about it. It's not something we talk about. Not comfortable talking about that kind of woo-woo shit, or this is not masculine to talk about feeling.
It's the
Um,
ultimate masculine, because you are the structure. You are the how, like you are the masculine is the structure, like the riverbanks, so that the feminine can flow, right? And we need each other. And I love what you said about you and Poppy and her being way more attracted to you. It's like, yes, women are attracted. Presence is potency, you guys. Presence is potency. Like the potency, it's kind of like the magnetism of the feminine, and the feminine essence is so attractive and radiant and open. It's just like there's this radiance and essence, that magnetism that men are attracted to, and they love a happy, confident, relaxed woman, right? That, and it's like women love, they're just naturally going to gravitate towards that grounded potency of the masculine. That presence is so key. And I just wanted to double down on that a little bit more, because I had some of the guys the other day say, well, I have way more sex when I'm making more money. I said, honey, it ain't your money. It's your presence when you make the money, because your confidence is that money has so much power for you that you show up as the man when you're making more money. But you forget the money has nothing with you being the man. It's what you're bringing to the relationship that's different. So she feels a different energy about you. She feels a different level of certainty, presence. And so that is what's attractive. But guys think it's about the cars or the money or what I'm providing. It's what you're bringing to the relationship. And again, what we were talking about earlier is a lot of us go to get validation, to get significance, to get comfort, to get security. But a powerful relationship, I believe, where we're really here to co-create, is I'm bringing 100% of me and all of my creative energy to the relationship, and you're bringing 100% of you and all of your presence and your creative power. And together, it's power plus power. It's like boom, like we're really here to bring to each other instead of come to take or ask.
I think I can't remember which book I read it in. It was about the idea of like this relationship's not 50-50. And you never want to see your relationship as 50-50, because when you see
No.
your relationship as 50-50, it's like, well, I'm bringing 50% and my partner's bringing 50%. So we're kind of making up for each other's lack of all inness. So the way you want to build your relationship is 100%, 100%. So I like that distinction. Like that was a big one for me. I was like, oh yeah, this is not a 50-50 relationship. It's 100%, 100%. Because when I create my relationship from a position of like, well, if I'm present 50% of the time and Poppy's present 50% of the time, we make up for each other's failings. But that's not how you create a strong, powerful relationship. It's like, okay, we're both going to play full out 100%.
All in.
Obviously, it's all in. All in.
It's
Like,
all in, not one foot out.
yeah.
As you're talking, something that, and I love that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, that 50% thing, because that's exactly what we do. We go to somebody to try to complete us. We hear this Jerry Maguire stuff all the time, like, oh, they complete me. And honestly, I think that there's two ways to play here. We can play addition when it comes to relationships, which is where a lot of us play. And I think that's a lot of the world's programming is like, okay, one half plus another half equals a whole, and we're playing addition. I believe that we are created for multiplication. Relationships are, what was the first command? Multiply and prosper. Multiply and prosper. We're here to multiply each other and prosper, not just making babies, but like building each other, multiplying each other. So I think the question is, am I here to be a multiplier in the relationship? It's like we're doing multiplication, 100% times 100%. Let's do that math.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we're doing when we're coming together. It's not half plus another half. Could you imagine the potential that our relationship holds when we're doing 100 times 100? I don't even know that math. Somebody do that math real quick. But
Oh my
it's
God. Actually,
right. It's exponential growth is what we're doing right here. Right.
if you're listening, watching or listening to this podcast, just that distinction. Am I creating my relationship through addition? It's like me plus my partner, or am I like creating it as a multiplier? Like it's
Multiplier.
me times my partner. And I think that's just something that you see and you're like, how do these people do so much with their lives, their businesses, their children, the experiences they have? And it's that they're not constantly trying to make up for each other's faults and deficits and bringing half-assed bits of energy to the way that they show up for each other. It's all in this. And I do actually think and this is something that I picked up in your conversation before, is that a lot of guys, I think like women have had their Oprah moment. Like the female movement has way begun. It started, maybe 15, 20 years ago. Women started switching on to personal development and they've had their Oprah moment. Like if you look at a lot of the men's space, like men are talking about this now. Women in schools are getting better grades. They're performing better on tests. They're getting better jobs. They're better at finding mates. They're finding guys that they want. And there's more and more guys who are failing in schools, failing in tests, not getting partners. There's more men on dating apps. And so men aren't stepping up. I think we've had like multiple men who've come to the Awaken Man who've been sent by their partner. They've been sent like say, hey, listen, you either step it the fuck up or you step it the fuck out. And like that's the ultimatum men are getting. They are getting that ultimatum by their partner because they are not dealing with their shit. And they either know it's coming, or they know it's upon them and they need to do something right now.
Yeah.
And they've heard the hints. And so, Christine, like, how does a man create a relationship alongside a woman who is, and this is something you said before, is like independent woman, a strong independent woman. And you said you wanted to reframe that to begin with.
Yeah. I want to answer that. And I also want to say what you just said is true. My husband's reading a book called The Boy Crisis, talking about that very specific topic of like, guys, my heart goes out to you. And this is why I love also supporting men and couples specifically in building richer relationships, because I know that there hasn't been a lot of support. There hasn't been those safe containers or spaces where we go actually do this work and we talk about it. And so it's so important. I just want to iterate, like, while you need time and solitude to get to know yourself, we need each other. We need community. And that really ties into this independence versus what I'm going to debunk here. Because part of the program that I picked up was like, look, I'm going to be independent, so I don't have to depend on anyone else, and I'm going to be strong. And yes, that's important for a season, right? We need to grow up and realize like, oh, I'm not going to be attached and tethered to mommy and daddy all the time. And I need to see what I'm capable of, my strengths. So there's a season, we call it warrior training, where the warrior goes into training and we're seeing, what am I capable of athletically, right? What can my body do? What can I do with my business? And we got to go through that warrior training. But I believe that there comes a time where it's like, we've mastered that. We know that we can continue to get stronger, but it doesn't have to come at the expense of pushing ourselves away from other people, isolating ourselves, or falling into these comparison traps, right? While this whole independence thing is great, and sometimes people will say, I want an independent woman or an independent man. I don't want to have to. It's like, I remember I was actually at a Tony Robbins event when I stood up. I got like called out of the audience. Tony called me up out of the audience. I think it was at Business Mastery. Yes, it was the one where I met my husband. I didn't know he was going to be my husband yet. But I stood up because I stood up and I had this like light bulb moment where I was like, oh shit, I have been touting on the fact that I'm this strong, independent woman and I don't need anybody and I can do everything on my own. And I had all these like expectations that I was supposed to figure it all out myself. And it was so heavy to live in that place because I was the source. I was the source of all the solutions. I was the source of all the problems. And so it was just so heavy and lonely to live in that place. And when I stood up, I was like, I'm moving into this space of interdependence. interdependence, which means I need you. I actually need a husband. I need, husbands need their wives or partners. I need my kids. My kids need me. Like, not that I'm needy, but we need each other. And I'm going to start bringing all that I got because I know there's things that I got that you need. And I'm also going to be okay with people bringing all that they've got and me learning how to receive. Because independent me did not know how to receive anything. Okay. I was like, no, thank you. I can do it myself. What, you think I can't do it? If somebody offered a solution, sometimes I would get offended. And I see this inside of relationships. So I'm going somewhere with this. It's like sometimes we have this psychology in the background, this mindset that if somebody, my wife or my husband, my wife is telling me something, that she's telling me I'm a failure. Well, she must think that I don't know what I'm doing, or she must, and so we play in this space of like self-doubt and beating ourselves up instead of, again, being like, okay, what can I receive here? And how can I step up? What can I receive and how can I bring, right? It's both. It's like I'm catching the ball and I'm also bringing something, instead of like, oh, now we start feeling sorry for ourselves because we should have figured it out, or we need to go lone wolf it. And the lone wolf syndrome is a real thing. I used to operate like that. Work with a lot of men. My husband and I, we catch each other because we still do it sometimes. And we're like, hello, are you in the cave? Like, you disappeared. You went in the wilderness, But it's like reminding each other that we're here for each other. We need each other. We're not needy, but we're not desperately clinging, but we are clinging to each other. We're bringing things, and we're really in this collaborative, co-creative space instead of this competitive, combative space where we are constantly feeling like we're not measuring up or living up or whatever. We should be doing all this other stuff, which isn't helpful in a way, because there's one of the things I really see is like we really struggle with trusting ourselves then. Because if we don't have all the perfect answers and we don't have all the resources, then we're like, we hide and we do these other things, like go into these pleasure seeking things like porn or affairs or whatever else, spending money, gambling, list your thing, pick your poison.
Yeah, the guys show up at our door every single day, every single week, saying that that's the way that they're dealing with how they're showing up as a lone wolf. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a lone wolf. I don't share my emotions. I don't need anyone to support me. Yeah, I've got all these socially acceptable addictions, and that's the thing that happens is like guys will just talk to guys about these socially acceptable addictions, and sometimes even be applauded for them, like, oh yeah, this guy drinks 9 pints on a Friday, or he parties all weekend long. And it's like, and a big part, I think, is that stepping out of independence. It's like this guy that he can deal with all his emotions on his own, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
As well, actually, Christine, I don't know, we
Yeah.
might have talked about this. In the UK, the interaction with like going deep, doing therapeutic work, having a counselor, having a coach is we're not as clued up as the States, where it's way more frowned upon than the States. And like a part of my journey and part of the message I share is that I was really proud of the fact that I went and got a really good psychotherapist and did great work, and it's changed me as a dad, it's changed me as a partner. So yeah, I can totally see that.
You guys are known for having really high emotional control, which is really probably just maybe never being exposed to having those conversations, but also, as you were talking about those patterns, the drinking excessively or the running to porn or doing these things, if you think about the roots, those emotions, there's a lot of shame there, like embarrassment, and there's a lot of pride, and it's sort of like a ping pong team, like swinging wildly from like pride to shame and pride. And it's like, 1 minute I'm proud, look at me, I don't care, da 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 da, and then the other minute we're like embarrassed, like how could I do that? Or maybe there's just that neutral space of I say I don't give a shit, or I don't know, or I've never been exposed, right? But regardless of what the roots are here, it's like just getting curious, like what's going on, and coming out of hiding, like out of that place, and going, that kind of loops back to our acceptance, is like just accepting that I'm struggling right now. I am struggling. I'm unhappy with where I'm at. I'm not happy with the results I'm producing. I'm not happy with how I'm showing up for my wife, and I need some support. Like, some mentorship, some community. And just that's a huge piece, is like hiding, coming out of that hiding place. And that's the first act of self-love, by the way, that we were talking about earlier, is being willing to be seen.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. It's like a big first step for a guy is to be able to say, do you know what? The way I'm showing up in my relationship isn't working. Like I think that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. It's like to be able to say, hey, like, I'm not happy with how I'm showing up in this relationship right now.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like I'm leading in the right way. I'm not feeling like I'm bringing in or bringing to the relationship the 100% that we talked about before. I think it's a big
It's
failing
huge.
for a guy to be able to do that, and it's super courageous to do it as well. I think guys see it as weak, but I see it as courageous. It's like,
Well, and as you were saying that, you guys, like listening to, it's like it's courageous, it's humble. Humility is a sign of nobility. Okay, like humility is a sign of nobility. Like no woman wants some peacocking guy who's going to be refusing to be humble. There's a greatness to humility that's very attractive, and that coupled with the courage of being able to put yourself out there, to come out into the light, into the places that you think, maybe you haven't been so proud of, and then to accept yourself in the situation where it's at right now, to be able to say, hey, this is where we're at. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I'm willing to, like, those right there are three characteristics of a king. King energy, king vibes, right? Is ownership, acceptance, humility, and courage.
oh
Hello.
wow, yeah, I think guys will definitely resonate with the king archetype, and yeah, I want to be a king. Yeah, I don't want to own my shit. That's like it's like,
That way. And guys,
yeah.
you can't have a kingdom if your castle is falling apart. If things at home are not well, you got to get the inside right. Otherwise, everything you try to build on the outside is going to be a reflection of everything that you built on the inside.
Yeah, I could see that in my life when it was going to shit. I was like, everything seemed like it was crumbling on the outside because everything was crumbling on the inside. And I live, like, that really, life's a mirror. And I could see that internally I needed to go in and do the work. And I think that's what a lot of guys get to is, and I think maybe if you're listening into this and you can even see some of the symptoms of your life falling apart, or you're not showing up in the relationship you want to show up as, if you have your partner has been saying to you, you need to go and sort yourself out, you need to go and, grow up, is maybe that's that's what gets said. You need to grow up, you need to man up, you need to get yourself sorted, you need to get out of your own way. These are some of the things that a lot of women will say to men. Poppy said some of them to me, saying you need to get out your own way. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is the work.
And that whole thing of grow up. I mean, I hate to say I used to be that woman that used to scream that across the room. And I was right in the sense of that they did need to grow up, because I was in a relationship with someone who was, an 8-year-old in an adult body, because his 8-year-old still was wounded. And so he had a fragment, like we get fragmented, we get wounded and we get locked up. So there's a part of us that is locked at that 8-year-old or 15-year-old or 3-year-old identity. And so we get triggered, and then all of a sudden we're like, why am I acting like a 3-year-old? Because I just went down to the little boy for a second, right? And so we say these things and we throw these things out at each other, and then we get upset and we're triggered and we're fighting about all the surface because it hurts us. But the reality is there is a little boy inside, and the little boy sometimes hasn't wanted to grow up or whatever. And so when you can love the little boy and you can go, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm still really leaning on that little kid. Maybe it's time that I trust the more mature version of myself a little bit. Maybe it's time that I get to know also that king energy, the warrior energy, the wise man inside. Like, there's this little boy that we default to. And now you're not getting offended by it because you're rejecting the little boy, but you can actually say, yeah, I am a little boy around this stuff. And this is obviously triggering me. We can actually have a conversation around it, and it doesn't have to be offensive. And it's when I talk to the ladies about this, I do encourage the ladies sometimes to call him up. Don't call him out, right? It's like the conversation with a queen would not be that she's telling you, you need to man up, but she would say something like, I know there's a king in there.
Yeah.
Can you bring the king right now to the conversation?
Should see Christine's face right now. She's she's I love
But
that.
also notice,
That's powerful though. Like, that is super
how do you
powerful.
receive that though? How do you receive that?
I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear, because I feel called up, not called out. I love that distinction, because, like, guys, listen, and this might be like the beauty of listening to this podcast is you can go and take this language and take it to your partner, saying like, hey honey, one of the things that when we have a conversation, when you call me out, I feel triggered. What I want you to do is call me up. I want you to call me up to a higher level. So, and
Yes.
just use what Christine shared. What was it? Go and say it again, just so these guys can go and recite it
Well,
back to
I
their
just say,
partners.
call up. call up the king, because the king right now, he's in there. He just hasn't trusted himself or hasn't woken up yet or whatever. It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean I'm falling in love with your potential. And I know I'm not speaking to women, but it goes the other way around too, guys. If you're speaking to your women, when we call each other out, we're speaking to the little boy or the girl, and we're like picking on them and shaming them and all that stuff. So we're exasperating the wound instead of saying, hey, I know there's a king in there right now. I know there's a queen in there. So let's bring the queen or let's bring the king and let's have a conversation about this. Are you down? Are you willing? And now that's a completely different conversation that we get to have versus the one that I'm like, when are you going to grow up?
Yeah.
When are you going to do something, right? And it changes instantly, like just like that, the entire tone, the entire conversation. And now we move into that multiplication territory instead of sticking around, dancing around our wounds, right? And pointing fingers. So speak to the king, call him up. But also, if I'm a queen and I'm talking to you as the king, I'm going to be like, I know that you want me to trust you. I know that you want me to feel safe by you. I know that you want me to look at you this way. And so here's what I need from you so you
Yeah.
can win, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people do, not just women or men. It's like just state their needs. Like this is what I need from you,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think this it's a really because a lot of guys don't share their needs, and this is something that nice guy syndrome. We had Robert Glover on the podcast. He talked about nice guys. It's a great interview if you want to check it out. And it's where he talked about nice guys don't share their needs. They have covert contracts. So what they do is they do nice things, hoping they'll get their needs met, but they're never overt about sharing what they are.
But that's the whole point. That's not communication, this indirect, sort of wishy-washy, passive-aggressive, assuming. And for the men listening, it's like, have you asked her, what do you want, babe? What are your needs? Like, just tell me black and white. I need it in black and white. Because this is the other thing. It goes the other way around. You don't tell her what you want or need, and you don't ask her what she wants or need, but you're trying to guess all the time, and you're setting yourself up to fail. And it's like, I'm a big believer, like, let's set each other up to win, So I want to know.
Yeah. So one of the conversations that maybe a lot of the listeners can resonate with is, where do you want to go for food tonight? So that question comes up for me.
Do not ask that question.
I don't answer that question. I get asked that question. And the answer I give is, are you asking me to make a decision about food, or are you sounding out where you are interested in eating? Because I'm a man and I am like, if it's got good calories and it's got meat, I'm good. I'm just like, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to drive as far as you want to go. But I
Yeah.
know with Poppy, she's got her flavor of the month, well, how she's feeling, her emotional state.
Exactly.
And so that conversation becomes like, what do you need from me right now? Do you need me to
Yeah.
make a decision, or is it
Yeah.
that, yeah? And it's often like, can you just be decisive for me?
And being able to say that, though, is huge. Like, I love that you brought that up. Even for my husband and I'm like, I want to go on a date night somewhere beautiful with a beautiful patio and sunshine and fresh seafood. Let me know where you're taking me.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
he gets to pick the place, and he's already totally been set up to win. So he's just like winning,
Yeah.
winning, all the time. But it's being direct in communication without being demanding. And
Mm.
so I love that you brought that up, because the worst is when a man asks you, like, where do you want to go for dinner, or where do you want to go on a trip? I had a couple that I was coaching. It was their anniversary, and the guy was asking the wife, where do you want to go for our anniversary? What do you want to do? What hotel do you want to do? And I'm like, that is putting all of the work on her, right? And it's like, that is like the last thing she wants, I guarantee you. She wants you to make a decision. She also wants you to ask her what she desires, what she would
Right.
enjoy. If you don't know that, then ask her. But don't ask her to make the decision and pick the places. But
I think
get
this
to
is a
know her.
really okay, guys. Let's slow this down because I think you all need to listen up, and me, including me. Right. So Christine, you're saying that like on a special occasion, she wants you to be decisive, yet she wants you to know what she likes. So it's okay to ask what she desires, but it's not okay for her to make decision on where she wants to go.
Well, I'm saying don't put it on her, right? So a lot of men, and again, they're afraid they're going to fuck it up. So they're like, I can't get it wrong. I'm not going to get it wrong. Or they forget it's not that as big maybe of a deal to the guys. It is of the woman, if it's an anniversary or whatever. But again, every single woman I've ever worked with wants to be surprised, cherished, delighted, right? Like it's a big deal. And so it being able to say, hey, I'm planning something for our anniversary. I'm excited. Like you are recognizing, recognition is number one. This is coming up. This is a big deal. I'm going to show up. That's the number one step is recognize preemptively. You're taking initiative, king quality. You're planning ahead, king quality, and you're checking in with the queen of like,
Oh,
hey,
nice.
what does the queen desire? What would you like? Do you want oceanfront? Do you want like, I'm going to take care of the rest. So she knows, and this is a little bit of us playing together so that you get to know what she likes and appreciates. But I think the sad thing is a lot of men don't know. They don't know what she likes. They don't know what she doesn't like, what kind of vibe, what kind of music. And it feels like a pain in the ass. And it's just because we haven't normalized having these conversations. But now what you can do is show up in that king energy from the beginning. And then some of these women are trained to be able to say like it's okay because a lot of women are not comfortable asking for what they really want. And so creating an environment where you're like, babe, I want to know. Tell
Yeah.
me. I want
I,
I want
I,
to I want to provide this experience.
I am. I can see where I'm not bringing a. I'm saying I'm a 5 out of 10 for that. So even just
Really?
yeah, I think so. Honestly, I'm really like on this journey, like romance and being surprising and cherishing Poppy for who she is, and this is my biggest desire to work on right now. It's because I want to take it from a 5 to a 10. What if you read Esther Perel's like Mating in Captivity, it's like
Yes.
when we moved to Dubai, I became like sure, certain, safe, consistent. And like it was like the intimacy against the eroticism. So like we were like, for me becoming super consistent and predictable
Yeah.
and boring and doing the same thing over again, it destroyed our intimacy because
Mm.
it was like the thing that we needed. We needed that surprise and that,
Mhm.
and I just stopped doing the things that are really necessary. And I think that's something I said to Poppy after reading the book. I was like, I'm going to make a change in this arena. Actually, I planned a late birthday surprise for her. So yeah.
Yay.
Yay,
I
it's
love it.
really super cool. And I think that is like so many coaches now, they'll talk about love languages and Poppy's is experiences. Like,
Same.
so it's kind of, yeah, so it's acts of service, stroke,
Yeah.
quality time.
Yeah.
And I can say nice things about her, I can say nice things to her, but if I plan an event, I we go and do something together, it'll stick in a memory forever and she'll love
Rocket
me.
fuel, right? It's just
Yeah.
rocket fuel to your relationship. I'm the same. One of my biggest needs is variety. Like I mean, my backstory, I moved countries all the time. I was exposed to a lot of different cultures and foods. And so for me to go to the same restaurant for date night is like, oh no, no. No, 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 no. That is not going to work out. So my husband, he knows, like, okay, we have our date nights on the calendar. We have our quarterly getaways on the calendar. We have our trips on there. We don't necessarily know where we go, but he's really good at, okay, I know my queen loves some variety and experiences and
Yeah.
and so he's very intentional about creating that space and his needs are different. Like he would be fine probably if we went to the same restaurant all the time. But for him, he just wants to, I'm just going to say this. He just wants to connect with me and see me happy because when I'm happy, then our intimacy is great, right? He's like happy wife, like she's happy, she's relaxed, she's open, I'm playful, and it's all the things, and it's like the perfect recipe, right? So, and I think I hear that a lot from the men too, is that I just want to see her relaxed, happy and open, right? Because that's when she invites you in and receives all of you instead of trying to control you or push you away or close up. And so it's get to know what relaxes her instead of trying to fix her so that she relaxes. Get to know
Yeah.
what
Oh,
opens her up instead of trying to open her up. You don't open her up. The environment allows her to open up, right? Like putting a flower in the right environment. You don't force a rose to open.
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's such a good. I'm just going to come back to that. Just don't need to gloss over that one. It's not that you fix her and then she opens up. And I think that's what a lot of guys' natural operating mechanism is. I need to
Mhm.
fix everything for her and then she'll be relaxed. And what did you say is the contrast to that, Christine?
You have to know the environment that allows her to relax, right? And so part of the environment is the presence. Like your presence is a huge piece of that environment because a lot of men are trying to fix everything, but they're agitated because they're trying to get their wives or girlfriends to relax. And now it's like, now not only do I have to worry about this stressful environment, but I got to deal with your frenetic energy too. So now you just like built up even greater walls, right? Instead of you showing up grounded and anchored and then being like, hey, what gets to happen here so you get to relax a bit,
Mm.
right? What do you need so you can relax a bit? And it's really that simple, and letting her give the answer. Because what I hear a lot is like, why are you so anxious? Why can't you just relax? Why can't you just have fun or whatever? And why don't you just get rid of that client? They're such a pain in the ass. You don't like them anyways. And then she's just more pissed off at you because she's like, I didn't ask you for advice.
Yeah. Oh God. Honestly, one of the biggest breakthroughs we see with guys is teaching them that they don't have to fix everything. And
Yeah.
part of our conversation is how does a man attract and keep a powerful, independent, strong woman? And actually, is that he doesn't have to fix her all the time. Like that, I think that's what some men find women that they think they have to fix all the time, and that's what they see themselves. I'm just a fixer. I'm the make things okay guy. And it's actually when a guy can sit there and listen to his partner go on about their day and not feel like he has to fix everything. That's a guy that's done his work. Brené Brown said it. Whereas when a guy can just sit there and validate and listen and hear his wife, his partner, and not fix and just be there, that's unreal. We had a conversation on
It's huge.
yeah, on the Wake Man the other day. It was one of the guys, and he was talking about his partner, and he'd obviously never come across this kind of conversation before. And he took so much from just this thing about listening, about just listen. He doesn't need to fix anything. He doesn't need to understand. He'll never understand. And we were talking about actually
Yeah,
PTSD.
what you said there.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. He just needs to listen. And that was like every single man on the call was like, that was a life changing conversation. And so many men don't know how to do that because the only thing they know to do is just jump into being a fixer.
And that's just because they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with being in that place where they are not in control and they are not the fixer, right? So that goes back to that solitude thing again. It's like, isn't it interesting? I'm really uncomfortable with this. What part of me is uncomfortable with that? But I love that conversation. And I just want to say, even as we were talking about the title of this podcast of how do we attract a beautiful, powerful woman, that is strong. It's like you bring those characteristics, those kingly characteristics, right, that we were talking about earlier. You become that, you are that, right? That attracts, but to hold the relationship, kind of a funny thing because you can't hold on to a woman. You can't chase her. You can't fix her enough. You can't, a strong woman can't be held in the sense of like hold on to, but she will stay in an environment that is held, right? So what you do as a man is you hold the environment that she feels like she wants to come back, she relaxes in, she opens up in, she's fully cherished in. She'll come there, she'll stay there because that's where she'll feel seen, she'll feel loved, she'll feel protected. So how you hold that woman in your in your sphere beside you is you hold that presence, the ability to listen, not need to understand, to be curious about her, to all of that things. That's how you hold on to a woman like that. And you continue to do your own inner work, right? And you get curious together and you play together. But I wanted to really tap into that because it's not about holding it all together. It's about being a fierce protector of the environment that you have together
Wow,
and that you bring that.
that's gold. Christine, I
Yeah.
think we'll wrap up our first podcast
Yeah.
together. I think this will be one of many. And I just want to thank you. I've learned a shit ton. I think I've made.
Yeah.
I think I've made. You never think you've made. You've either made or you fucking made or not made. I've made a commitment. So after listening to you sharing about making sure that the date nights on the calendar and the surprises and knowing and being decisive, that's my commitment to myself and to Poppy. Is a thank you for that conversation. But there's been
Yeah.
so many things that you've shared in this conversation that's blown my mind, and I think it's just super helpful for guys to hear it from you. Who you've obviously done your work. You're super successful in what you do. You help very successful people do the same, and it's just been a really great experience to listen to you sharing what you've got to share on this topic. So, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you do and who you are and how you can help someone?
Yeah, you guys can connect with me at the Christine Jewell on Instagram. We'll drop a link. Maybe I'll share a link with you too to a link tree where people can drop in and connect with me there. And I have a couple different master classes they can tap into on unlocking extraordinary relationships and stuff like that. So just connect with me on Instagram. I always love to hear what people receive from these conversations and go from there.
Oh,
Also,
thank you
I
so
should
much.
share my podcast actually. I have a podcast also called The Untamed Life. We're going to have you on there shortly. So, The Untamed Life with Christine Jewell is a podcast you guys can connect to. more of the
Yeah.
things I share there.
Oh no, I think this will be one of our many conversations we have, because I think
Yeah.
what I loved is that you've got obviously that huge wisdom about not just experience, not just actual technical skills you've been obviously practicing, but just you managed to articulate all this stuff so eloquently. I love that, and it gave me a lot of clarity myself. So thank you, Christine. I really enjoyed our conversation, and may it be one of many. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.